And it means that you need to be more diligent in the ways that you act with clients. Now that might mean that that the time you spend with with clients increase, and to get around to all your clients might mean that you might have less clients as a financial advisor. But if you're doing the things right, it shouldn't have a huge impact on you as a financial advisor or as a product provider.
Oh, and is this just another layer of compliance, or are we actually seeing a move towards rethinking business models and how we service customers and how we position them in the business model in essence?
Look, I believe that, as my colleague has said, that looking after your clients should be part of what your business is set up to do. And unfortunately, you get a challenge when you've got many different players, and it becomes too difficult for the FSP to monitor all those individual companies. Most of these companies will have one key individual that's the representative of the business, that's marketing the business, that's doing the administration, that's doing the compliance. So there is no way someone who's operating on his own can actually manage a big number of clients fairly and give them enough attention. So my belief is that the FSP and the regulators in the country have progressively instituted a lot of these rules that are going to be positive, in my view, in terms of making sure that clients do actually get the right service. When you do a consultation with the client from the beginning, the interests of the client should always be put first. What does the client want? Not what does the broker want or what does the representative want.
Yeah.
When you look at a client, you should not see fees, but you need to say, here's someone who's looking for my advice. My intellectual capital should come to the fray here. If you help the client as best as is possible, you should be able to reap the rewards from a good referral network that comes through from the clients you help. So I believe that treating clients fairly is a very important aspect of our businesses. It's going to make sure that we actually get more professional about how we do things. Squeeze the small guys out? Well, should we have a small guy that cannot service their clients fully in the first place? In an environment that is so well regulated, in an environment that actually needs a lot more support structures in the business, can you service 100 clients fairly?
I see Marc is dying and itching to get into to fight back that.
Because may I qualify that I'm not saying we don't want to have smaller businesses. We don't want to have the one guy looking after 100 clients. Yeah. But can he please do that only if he can afford to do it properly?
Sure.
And if he cannot, is putting the clients at a disadvantage, Marc.
But I think it ends up, we're trying to encourage entrepreneurial spirit in the country.
Yes.
So we want smaller players to get in there. And I totally agree with you. One person can't service 100 clients fairly. Yeah. But the problem with the financial service or the advisor model is that there's a tipping point where it actually is worth doing it. But and as you grow, you obviously you need to reach a certain number of clients to be able to make the business worthwhile. Yeah. But if you can't carry a cost base of 3 or 4 people filling compliance, filling administration, filling advice, if you can't get to that tipping point. So it almost feels like it's just putting a further barrier up, protecting those guys that are in the industry at the moment and not allowing new players in.
No, I actually disagree with you totally, because my take is that the industry, everyone who gets into this industry knows that it's increasingly getting more regulated. Why is it getting more regulated? Because you've got an old lady in Finweek who's got a life policy that has got an accelerated benefit, and they absolutely think it's the best thing in the world. They do not know that there's other things you can do with that life policy to reap more benefits from it. And you know what? Finweek is just too far for the regulators to actually even go there and be more proactive and actually educate the people in that space and say, by the way, if you're meeting your financial advisor, this is what you can expect from him. So in a way, those people could continue to be disenfranchised if rules like these don't get implemented. And I think it's important to realize that if you're playing in this industry, you're servicing a client and you do not meet any of these criteria, do you actually need should we allow you to keep your license? We want a clean industry that gives the right services to the clients, and we want to stick to the regulatory environment. Yes, let us have new entrants in the business, but they must be well resourced to stick to the dictates and the expectations of the regulatory environment. And just by the way, South Africa's regulated environment for financial markets probably top 10 in the world, and you guys know that. And if we were to loosen these things just to accommodate more people, I think would achieve the negative result.
I'm going to play referee now.
Can I put you on
Okay,
the
time
spot
out.
there?
So Tandi, your turn, and let's see what you can bring to the table.
Can I put you on the spot, Owen?
Go ahead, Tandi.
Sean was saying that, you know, if you've been running your business according to the book,
Yes.
there's no reason you will have to struggle
Yes.
implementing this act or TCF. And I've spoken to a lot of, especially insurers, and
Yeah.
all of them are saying, no, this is how we've been practicing. This has been our business model.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy to simply implement this thing. It's a simple exercise. It's been our life all along.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Look, I agree, definitely, because there isn't a lot of, all that the TCF's talking about is saying, when you have a client that is paying you 500 rands a month into a retirement annuity, and you're getting 5 rands a month from that annuity as your income, and you got a client that is paying you 10,000, or a client who's an institutional client paying you 2 million rands, and you're making more money than this guy, it says that both those clients need to be treated the same. It's just like in soccer, when you're refereeing Kaizer Chiefs playing a
Orlando
smaller
Pirates.
team.
A small,
Excuse me?
useless team
Excuse
like
me,
Orlando
ma'am?
Pirates, yes.
I think we'll take this outside. I mean, if you have to be objective, you will treat all the 16 teams fairly as a referee. It does not matter who's contributing more into the league in terms of bringing in the revenue through gate sales. So this is exactly what the industry wants to address. And I believe that you know, if you are a half decent financial services practitioner, all of these things that are being elevated in TCF, you've actually been practicing them. We're just now policing them and making sure that they get implemented and individual clients get as much attention as the bigger clients. But the flip side to it is this: if you feel like you're not, you cannot service your clients properly given TCF, and you need to bring in more resources, you're going to have to start charging probably more money for your consultations. That is how you can then get more skills into your practice. It's going to result in an increase in the costs. If the smaller business players are going to stay in the business longer, they have to charge more for consultation.
Sean, I want to maybe move it along a little bit in terms of the tithe versus the independent advisor.
Yes.
Is this not playing straight back into the tithe environment where you are going to simply have let's use Stanley as the example. People are simply going to go with the houses that they know rather than going the independent model?
Mark, we believe there's a space for both. Okay, we believe that it is a partnership between the product provider and the financial advisor. It's no longer the financial advisor that are being regulated by phase at the end of the customer. So each one of us has a responsibility. Now, I believe what's going to happen is that you will find that financial advisors, because now of the requirements of TCF, will start aligning them with 1 or 2 product providers and not 3 and 4 product providers, because it's going to be a hard job for them to comply to the requirements of TCF. You need to do due diligence on your product provider needs to do due diligence on the financial advisor, you need to understand the product, you need to be trained in the product, you need to be kept up to date in terms of, so it is going to increase the workload of both the product provider and the financial advisor. So you will find financial advisors that start aligning them rather than having multiple. So, and that may just drive the smaller financial advisor to a tight
But
environment.
is the customer the winner then? I mean, or have we gone back to the model where we were essentially supporting the privileged few?
From Stanley's side, we believe that the customer will end up being the winner, because the customer will be advised on products that's feasible to its requirements, and because the financial advisor will be much more informed of what the product provider has to offer. So yes, I think the customer will win in the we believe that the customer will win in the long run.
Final comments from you on how you see the customer benefiting at the end of the day from TCF?
You know what, I think I will speak from a very biased perspective, because when we looked at the TCF dictates and we looked at our business, we realized that the way we've been operating, making sure that you bring in a client, you do financial needs analysis for the client, you do a risk questionnaire for the client, and then you do an implementation strategy for the client. You get different solutions, and then you narrow them down together with the client and give him the best solution. These are the two best options we think you should go with, and these are the advantages and disadvantages of each. So if all our wealth managers go out and they do exactly what we've been doing in our business, I think that this is not going to be a difficult hurdle. But my biggest worry is the increase in costs, because it just means we need to spend more time with each client. And if a client needs good service, they will have to pay for it, unfortunately.
Before we close quickly, Marc, do you see the FSB as actually having the muscle to enforce this legislation once it goes ahead?
I don't think it's so much a case of FSB trying to enforce it. I think what they're trying to do is have a self-regulating industry. I think they're just, I mean, if you look at the FSB, they are stretched incredibly thin.
Yeah.
They look after an incredibly big market relative to the amount of resources that they have available. What you want is a responsible industry, and I think that is the issue that you want. You want a responsible asset management, you want a responsible advisor, and you want the responsible product broker going all the way through the value chain, because then it is a fair shake of the tree.
Towards a more responsible financial services industry. Thank you, gentlemen. That was Sean Watkins, head of Standard Lisp, and Owen Goma, executive partner at Inkunzi Investments. Now we're going to be turning to our Befriend the Trend, and our topic for today is don't buy your car on residual. Marc, I wish somebody had told me this a good 3-4 years ago, but let's perhaps paint the picture why people like me were duped into buying a car in residual in the first place. Why is it so attractive?
Well, I think, you know, we saw the stat. I think we chatted to Westbank a couple of weeks back, and I think they were saying a majority of their book now sits with 7-year loans for a car. I mean, I think when I bought my first car, the longest I could get it was 48 months. You know, and that is over the last decade. Suddenly, we're now up to 7 years to be able to pay off a car that essentially depreciates over 5 years. And I mean, you must understand, South Africans love their cars. I mean, you sit in the traffic every morning, and you can sit. What single person in a car, they love their cars. And I think that the cost of that culture of buying a car has led us to, we will do anything to buy ourselves a car. And so the product providers have come up with balloon payments, residuals, and it's just incredibly expensive to be. And I think that, you know, I saw a Jeep ad, I think it was Jeep the other day, and it said 2,500 Rand for a new Jeep Wrangler or whatever. And I thought, geez, I could see myself driving one of these things. And so reading the fine print, and I did the calculation at the bottom, and it nearly doubled the cost of the vehicle if I'd paid it versus if I'd paid it off over the period. But I think this culture in South Africa of trying to consume as much as you can, having to have a fancy car, it's catching up with us now, and I think that the product providers are just sitting there and saying, just here comes another sucker, because you are going to take this car and we'll find a way to finance it.
I mean, you did the maths when you looked at that Jeep Wrangler and you realized that you're going to be paying a much bigger sum. Is that what people should be doing in essence? Do you find that consumers, especially when you look at automobiles, they're not doing the maths. They're looking at the keys and the big red ribbon that they put on that thing before you drive away with it? Sure.
I mean, I love watching car ads. I mean, I think car ads, they intrigue me, and I love reading the fine print at the bottom with these deals, because I think they look so fantastic. And like and they're emotive, because I really could see myself driving a 4x4. It would be so nice. I'd be a grown-up and I'd have a really fancy car. But you read the terms and you realize that you're simply going to get caught out every time. Yeah. And it's, you know, do the math. If the thing is going to cost you 7 years to pay off, and traditionally it's going to be, if technically it's worth nothing after 5 years, it makes no sense. It
makes no sense. But before we move on very quickly, is there scope for people, once they're in an agreement of that nature where they've signed up for a balloon payment or residual, to actually review? Are there avenues to do that and maybe try to get out of it?
Look, I think a lot of the problem with these things is they're designed so that you roll the vehicle over, and you will, instead of you get to the end and you suddenly owe 50k, the guys are going to say to you, you can roll it over, you can get yourself out of it, but take another car and we'll keep, and that's the way these products are designed. So I think, you know, if you can settle it, settle it. I think when we look at our monthly installments, we sit there and we say we have to pay 2,500 Rand or whatever. Rather set some money aside, bash it into there and get rid of it.
Good one. But just a quick one, driving to work this morning, there's this beautiful ad of the new BMW 4 Series that is coming out, and the tagline says, we dare you to look away. So when you talk about that Jeep Wrangler, I was actually,
And
I
you
thought,
didn't look away,
I
did you?
didn't look away. I actually thought it was very cheeky, but you know, I was looking and driving at this BMW ad, but no 4 Series anytime soon. Time for a short ad break now. After the break, we'll address some questions from our viewers, so do stay tuned to CNBC Africa. Welcome back to Finweek Money Matters. Now, we encourage our viewers to pose questions to our panel. We've got a few viewer questions to be addressed right now, and we have at the desk Finweek editor Christia van Heerden, and she's going to be taking on some of the hard questions. The first one, Christia, I'm going to throw this one to you. This question comes from Tato, and Tato says, I'd like to invest 40,000 rands in shares and hold them for a period of 20 years. What should I buy?
Well, I'm going to answer this from obviously from my personal experience. I'm not a trader. I don't do fancy things on the market. So what I would recommend is if you've got an amount like 40,000 Rand, which is a relatively small amount, go for something that is safe and that can offer growth over a period of time. And for me, this would be an ETF. So my personal financial advisor advised me to basically split it into 2 ETF products because you know it has solid returns over a period. It's not very risky. If you leave it alone for 20 years, you'll probably get a solid investment.
So that's ETFs coming from Christia, and in particular maybe look at 2 options. Let's go on to our next question. This one comes from John, and John says, I've recently inherited 50,000 Rand, lucky John, and I'd like to invest it in the stock market. I've heard about a trading system that costs 5,700 Rands. Should I buy it, Tandi?
Look, I think if you want to get into the trading game, you have to go to providers like IG Markets, guys that know the game. You know, when we see the big numbers, we can simply think, today I can put in 10 grand and by tomorrow it's 15. And you know, we've got that instinct of thinking that we can just simply do it because someone like Mark or a trader has done it and we think we can simply do it. It's a very technical play, if you will. My advice would be, if you want to go the trading route, rather get a trader on your side. Go to a place like IG Markets, a provider like IG Markets, and they will set you up.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to maybe interject here because I get this question quite often around the trading systems and that kind of thing. And the immediate answer is, if somebody's got such a successful system, why are they selling you their trading system for 5,700? The answer is because their system isn't that great, but they can monetize the idea that they're going to sell you hope. My advice always has been, if you've got 5,700 Rand to put into a system, far rather go and take a stockbroker for lunch or go and find somebody who can give you a little bit of insights. Because you know, the problem with these trading things, and I've had this debate quite vigorously this week with a couple of people, is they tell you these ideas that you're going to wake up and you're going to make money and you'll trade intraday and you'll be able to really cash in. But you know, I woke up, I use this example. So I woke up on Monday morning, I have 15,000 Rand in my trading account. I did a totally stupid position. By the time I got to work, I was 95% down. My money was, you know, and this whole day trading thing is not, it's not an easy thing to do, and it often gets sold as hope, and they say, well, that'll never happen to me because I'm going to pay 5,700 Rand for a trading system. It's nonsense.
It's nonsense. Let's move on to the next one. This one comes from Stephanie. Stephanie says, I've been working for over a year now and I'd like to start investing. I'd like to employ the services of a financial advisor, but I have no idea where to start. Where do I look? How do I know whether someone is a legitimate advisor? And what else should I look out for? Perhaps let's pick up on that again, Mark. I mean, issues of legitimacy here. How do you know that you've got the real guy that giving you advice with your 50,000 Rand?
Same story. If somebody's going to come to you and they're going to roll out a laptop, and it's the traditional insurance salesman approach where they roll out a laptop, they say $100 a month and you'll retire with 100 million. It doesn't happen that way. What they see in you is a product or something that they can push a product onto. Same thing. I would rather go and take out a couple of people who might be interested in being my financial advisor. I think your 200 Rand investment in taking them for a lunch and seeing, is this somebody I can get on with, is a huge difference. Go and find somebody who's got a track record, somebody that people are that something that's credible. Go and check them with the Financial Services Board. Are they listed there?
This one coming to you, Krista, it's the last one. It comes from Linda, and Linda says, my house is paid off and I'd like to move into a bigger house. Should I sell my current property and use the money as a deposit, or rent it out and take out a much bigger bond on the new house?
Well, I think it's interesting that I get asked this question because I don't believe in buying property at all. So let me start off with that disclaimer. And then I'll say, I did a story once and I spoke to a guy who manages rental property, and he said that 12% of his rental income a month he puts away just for maintenance and for snags and stuff on the rental property. So if you decide to keep the property and then decide to buy a second house, you have to know that the full rental income from your property is not going to be yours. You're going to have to put money away because you have to deal with things. If something goes wrong in that house, it's your responsibility. You have to manage tenants, and tenants are a nightmare. I mean, there's a lot of stories online. So think very, very carefully before you buy a second house.
Think very, very carefully. That's where we're going to wrap up our viewer section. Thanks you so much for watching this week's edition of Finweek Money Matters. Remember that you can read about these stories and many more others in this week's edition of Finweek, which is on shelves from today. The magazine is also available digitally in English and Afrikaans via mysubs.co.za. Thanks again to Finweek editor Christopher van Heerden, who joined us for this segment, and my co-host for today, Marc Ashton, editor of Finweek, and deputy editor Tandisizwe Mahlutshana. Please do follow us on Twitter. That's using the hashtag Finweek Money Matters. We'll see you again same time next week.